Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast, brought to you by Modern Well, a beautiful woman-centered collaborative workspace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm your host, April Seifert, psychologist, entrepreneur, and self-proclaimed life experience junkie. Each week, I will introduce you to a different woman who is succeeding and inspiring others in one way or another. We'll dive into her story, her successes, failures, and the lessons she has learned along the way, all with the goal of inspiring you to listen to that inner voice who keeps reminding you that there is something you want to take action on. You are so much more capable and powerful than you give yourself credit for. Inside of you is a woman on fire. Let's let her out and see what happens. Here we go. Friends, welcome back to the Women Inspired Podcast. My name is April Seifert, and I am your host. This week's episode is amazing. We are talking about so many of the topics that I am so passionate about, and so many of the topics that drive the whole purpose behind this podcast. Specifically, this week, we are talking about the importance of keeping in mind how we choose to spend our time and who we choose to spend it with. And I'm going to bring you a woman who is a beautiful example of how life can take such a meandering path when we strive to follow our passion.
You know, post-cancer, I'm like, I'm done with this business. I'm ready to pass it on to somebody else and go all in on what I'm passionate about. I keep a list, which I did before my mom had cancer, but I keep a list of all the places that I want to go in the world, which I've done for a long time, and I keep a list of things that I want to do, things I want to try. I kind of look at it every year. I see what I've done. I see how it's changed. So in my mind, post her cancer, I'm trying to do the things that I want to do. Not just say, oh, when I'm retired, I'm going to do this, or when my kids are in college, or I'm trying to do it now.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I'm very focused on living and not waiting.
That excerpt was from this week's interview with Marnie Marmet, and I am so excited for all of you to get to know her. Marnie founded and is president of Chili Bean Promotions, a promotional products company that she started 15 years ago. What's interesting is after her mom got diagnosed with cancer, she really took a critical look at her own life and realized that there was a passion inside her for helping people become healthy and live healthy, fulfilling lives, that she took a left turn. And now, even though Chili Bean Promotions is a healthy, thriving company, she is working on starting and, standing up a brand new company called Zenful Life Coaching, a health coaching and wellness practice. She does an innovative combination of health coaching and yoga in order to help people change their lives. We are also going to talk about an amazing passion project of Marnie's. We're going to talk about a book that she is in the middle of writing, which is a gift book for women who are diagnosed with cancer. This is such a powerful interview and is such a beautiful example of someone who is following a meandering path, following their passion, and really taking their own passions and their own goals seriously after experiencing an adverse event. I am so excited for you all to meet Marnie. Marnie, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm super pumped to chat with you today because you've got a really cool background. You're working on some really cool things. I know that my audience is really going to love everything that you're doing. But before we get started, just give us a really quick history on who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 45 years old and I'm from Minneapolis. I have 3 children. I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. My oldest is a boy and 2 girls. And I was in the corporate world before I had kids. And once I had my son, I decided to stay home with him. And after about 6 months, I got bored just being home. And I felt like I needed to use my mind more. So I decided to go into the promotional products business. And I won't get into the details of that, but basically I started that business and I've been running it for about 15 years. But a few years ago, I was feeling unfulfilled in that business, and I had been reading a lot about health and wellness, and it has always been a passion of mine. I was a gymnast in high school, and I've always been into fitness and yoga. And I just started kind of delving deeper into that health and wellness arena. And I went back to school and got certified as a holistic health coach and a yoga teacher, and also a yoga calm teacher, which is yoga for kids. And I opened a second business, which is called Zenful Life Coaching, about 2.5 years ago. And that business does one-on-one coaching, group coaching, some corporate coaching, and is still evolving.
Nice. That's awesome. I love it when people have a little bit of a meandering path that they've taken, because sometimes I think it's easy to look at people that we don't know, or people who might be online, or who you might encounter in a variety of ways, and think that, you know, their path has been very straight and narrow, and that it all made sense and they never ever diverged from it. But it doesn't seem like that was the case with you. I mean, you know, you started evaluating whether your first business was something that, well, actually, even before that, you started evaluating whether staying at home with your kids and focusing 100% there was what you wanted to do. And then again, you know, more recently with your first business. Is that, I always get interested in asking people that introspection that you did, how did those questions start to come up? Or like, is it an inner voice? Do you look for like signs in the world? Like, what is it that started to like poke you on the shoulder to say, I think there's going to be a left turn here somewhere?
So I've always been very introspective and very in touch with myself. I'm one of those people that has to follow my gut, which is like my inner voice, or my inner, it's almost like my stomach. If I have a stomach ache, I know something's wrong in my life. So I was just feeling drained from my work instead of invigorated.
Interesting.
And so my body was really telling me that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was about my work that I didn't like. And then I started yoga teacher training, which going into it, I thought it was going to be all about the physicality of yoga. And really it was more about how to live your life true to yourself was kind of what I got out of it. And in addition to all the physical stuff. Yeah. And I just
to not fall over and tree pose.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So for me, I don't know. It's just listening to my gut and really doing my own soul searching.
I love that. You mentioned that you were feeling unfulfilled, and this is another direction that I like to go down, and I'm always really curious about people's answers to it. You know, I recently conducted an interview with a woman named Nancy Lyons, and she mentioned that 81% of people feel disengaged from their work. And you were looking at your work and you were saying, I don't feel fulfilled by this. Why was it so important for you to get yourself to a place where you felt fulfilled and where you really felt passionate about what you were doing? Because lots of people don't. I mean, they just stay. I mean, 81% is huge.
So I am the kind of person that is so true to myself that I feel sick inside if I'm doing something that doesn't feel right to me. So I still have the business. I'm currently trying to sell that business, but I'm doing this other stuff now, which is filling me up in a way that I feel. It feels great that I'm being filled up on that side, so it's not as draining on the other side, but I would like to unload it all together. I don't know if I answered that question. Basically, I can't live a life that doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned that now you're getting into holistic health coaching. Tell me a little bit about what that is, because I think the idea of coaching is something that's getting to be more popular, and people are realizing the benefit of having either a career coach or a success coach or a health coach or something like that to really help them, you know, level up in a particular area of their life. but holistic health coaching is a specific kind of gig in and of itself. So tell us a little bit about that.
So for my style, what I like to do is meet with somebody and find out from them what they're looking for in their health goals. And when I say health, it's a very open area. It's not just about nutrition. It's really about your mind and your body and your overall health. So I may have someone that's really stressed and they don't know how to manage their time, and that's what we're talking about and working on. And I may have someone that wants to lose 5 pounds, and that's kind of their goal. So we set goals together, and then we meet usually for about 6 months, twice a month. And we meet and we have check-ins, and we come up with small, sustainable changes, because it's really hard for a person to make a change in a week or in 2 weeks. It really takes about 6 months to make a change in your life that you can actually sustain. And my goal is not to tell someone, oh, you have to be gluten-free and dairy-free and, you can never enjoy yourself. That's not what health coaching is. That's not my style. I really believe in trying to heal people from the inside out, as opposed to, pushing all kinds of medicines on a person or prescriptions, which I obviously can't do anyway because I'm not a doctor, but I try and help people get off of that stuff and heal themselves from the inside.
Awesome. I love that you mentioned making small changes. There have been a couple of people that I have interviewed in the past in a variety of capacities, not just in health, but in a variety of capacities that have mentioned that as being a really big driver of success. Because a lot of us, that totally flies in the face of the throw it out the window New Year's resolution kind of approach, which maybe that works for some people. And I don't care. Whatever motivates you, man, do it, because I'm a big believer in people chasing goals. But ultimately, when the rubber hits the road, I think people do need to have incremental change that they can kind of acclimate to throughout the process. Have you found that?
Absolutely. I've made changes in my own life it's probably taken me 5 years. Just slow changes. So I think it's very hard to jump into something overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. When people come to you, when clients come to you, what are the things that you typically see? Are there common themes that you see with them that are things that are holding them back, or reasons why they haven't been able to get to the goals that they have, prior to coming to you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they need help laying out what a week looks like, or laying out their time, how to make time for something, how to prepare. A lot of it is time and preparation, and then just accountability. Having someone that they're accountable to is huge, or someone reminding them to do something. So I think none of it is difficult per se. A lot people know what they need to do a lot of times, but they don't actually have the accountability to do it. So having someone that's kind of in their court, cheering them on and motivating them is helpful.
Yeah. And that incremental piece to it too. I think sometimes people see the big step that needs to happen. Like you said, they know that something needs to happen and they know the change they need to make, but the sub bullets underneath it for how step by step, tiny little bit, how to get there.
Right.
That can be hard for people to break that down.
And especially in today's day, a lot of people want a quick fix. Like they want to, go on that quick diet that they think they're going to lose all their weight in 2 weeks. This is not a quick fix. This is a slow, sustainable change process.
We were talking, recently before we started recording. You actually have another, I can totally tell that you're like a passion-driven person. And you actually have another project that is still in the health realm that you've been working on in the form of this book that is, in process, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on. And I'm excited to talk to you about this because just for folks who are listening, lots of times when I talk to people, I catch them at the point after they've published a book or after they've done the big thing and it's kind of all over. it's really fun to talk to people midway and sort of see where they're at and catch them right mid-process, because it tends to be a little grayer in the middle point of a process when it's not all buttoned up and you don't know the conclusion of it yet. So I'm excited to hear about it. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Can I tell you why I'm writing the book first?
Yes.
So my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer a little over, it's been like a year and a half now, I guess. And first time someone in my family has had cancer. So I've never had firsthand experience, or secondhand, I don't know how you say that, experience with that. So I was with her at every step of the way. I went to her appointments with her. I went to her chemotherapy. I went when she had her head shaved. So I was with her through everything. And it was about 1.25 years of treatment. So it was a long process. And through that, I saw... So for my first gut reaction was, I want to do everything for you. I want to do everything I can to help you. I started reading everything I could in alternative healthcare. You know, I was picking up these dense books and I was saying, oh, you should read this and you should read that. And I noticed that I was overwhelming her. And so then that's not what I wanted to do. And then going to these doctor's appointments, I noticed that, and her doctor is amazing, but she wasn't focused on the nutrition and kind of like the things that a person can do outside of your traditional chemotherapy radiation regimen. And I also noticed that a lot of the information that my mom was getting was negative based, in the sense that, you know, they go over all the things that can happen to you. And it can bring a person down. And, you know, people would come up to her, oh, I had this kind of cancer and I got neuropathy, or I had this, or there was a lot of negativity being thrown her way. And that really bothered me. And so I was like, gosh, what can I do? How can I make a difference, help her, whatever? So I decided that I wanted to write a book. And I wanted to make this book a gift book. So nothing dense. It's not going to read like a novel. And I have been interviewing women cancer survivors. And the questions that I'm asking these women are mostly not so much focused on their cancer story as much as it's focused on what their life has been like since their cancer, and how has their cancer made something positive in their life. And then I'm also, within the book, I have some inspirational quotes from various people, and I'm putting in some health and wellness tips that I think are pretty easy to do. Not everybody would think about them or know how to implement these tips in their lives. For someone that's going through cancer that maybe wants to experiment with food or experiment with some other things. And
that's awesome. I am always really impressed with people who go through adverse situations. And the situation that you went through, you know, it's an adverse situation in and of itself. Supporting somebody who's going through a really difficult health journey is hard. It's really hard. And I'm always impressed with people who have gone through something themselves and sort of, instead of, you know, going along their merry way, they come back and say, all right, I've been through this. What did I learn? And how can I use that to help better somebody else's situation? I just think it's just amazing when somebody can turn around and offer a hand to someone who's coming up that big hill that they just came up, to help ease the way for that person in as much as they possibly can. I'm curious about this because I don't actually know the answer to this question. Had you ever written a book before?
No. I've always wanted to.
Are you freaked out about writing a book?
No, because I know that when I set my mind to something, I'll do it. But it's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's way harder than I thought it was going to be.
What are you running into that's difficult?
For me, sitting down and doing it. Which sounds crazy. Like, I've done my interviews. I'm still taking interviews if anybody wants to contact me, but I've done the minimum number of interviews I wanted for the book. I loved that process. I loved meeting with the women, I have it all transcribed now on the computer, but now I'm in the guts of the book where I'm actually doing the writing parts of it. And it's hard to motivate to sit down and do it. Mm-hmm. And so I have to block out time every week to make sure that I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a Brene Brown book. It might have been Big Magic or something like that, where she basically talks about how there is that unglamorous part of it where people have this sort of romantic idea about creativity and about what it takes to create something like a book or something artistic or whatever, what it takes to create it. And she's like, no, you literally just sit down at your desk every single day, whether you want to do it or not. If you're not in the mood, you sit down anyway and you do it. Right. And it sounds like that's the approach you're taking.
Yeah, and it's hard. That's definitely hard for me.
Well, I'm sure, given that you're so passion-driven, I'm sure you want to do right by these women that you interviewed.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge weight. I can imagine.
Yeah.
So as you think back to your conversations with these women, and I realize, this is totally off the cuff. We are not going to be getting to who knows what the ultimate pieces that will end up in the book will be. I mean, editing and stuff changes as you're writing, but what are things that stick out? And it could either be themes, it could be anecdotes. I mean, are there pieces that sort of stick out in your mind that you're like, God, that is you just learned something new in that process?
When I think about what I'm going to say right now, it makes sense to me, but I never really thought about it before I interviewed these women. But I heard from a lot of the women that when you have cancer, people treat you differently. They look at you different. Even your friends and your family, sometimes they walk on eggshells around you, or they only ask you about how you're feeling in reference to your cancer. And I heard overwhelmingly from so many women that something you can do if you know someone that has cancer is just talk to them about life in general, or about their kids or their work or whatever else they have going on. Like, they don't want to be known as their cancer. And I can't speak for everybody, but I did hear that overwhelmingly from a lot of women. And I think that's a good point that people maybe don't think about. So,
yeah. And you mentioned you focused a lot on not so much the journey with having cancer, but what their life looked like afterward. What did you learn from people in that respect? I'm really curious, and I have an ulterior motive here, but.
So a lot of women have mentioned to me that they don't let little things get to them, whereas pre-cancer, little things that maybe in the big scheme of life aren't that important would stress them out, like maybe, a dirty kitchen or, I don't know, petty things that seemed important at the time post-cancer don't seem important or don't bother them. They just kind of let it go. So that was one thing. I spoke to a number of women that also mentioned that they removed people from their lives that were toxic. That seemed to be another theme. Like, I'm going to spend time with the people that I want to spend time with and the people that I feel good with. And if I'm not getting that from somebody, I'm not wasting my time. So I think a lot of survivors are very conscious of how they spend their time and who they spend their time with.
Yeah. I was curious to see what direction you would go with that, because when I think back to my own family's experience when my dad had cancer, and then my experience just going through being diagnosed with MS and like all of the crazy physical symptoms, from blindness to paralysis to, you name it, like some crazy stuff. It's almost like when you've gone to that place where somebody has changed your outlook on what your physical life looks like, the best analogy I've ever been able to come up with is, do you remember that movie, The Matrix?
Yeah.
It's been a few years now, so there's probably people who haven't seen it. But, this whole thought is that, this Neo guy goes and he sees the Matrix. And at some point, to me, getting diagnosed with this incurable condition and watching my dad pass away and all these things, it's like I saw the Matrix And then I came back to real life and I couldn't unsee the matrix anymore. It's like I couldn't live a normal life where I was just sort of allowing it to happen to me anymore. And it seems like, you know, your point about getting rid of toxic people and really thinking about how you spend your time, when you realize that it's finite, you think about it a lot more.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And two, what I think is interesting, and I'm curious because this happened, you know, to your mom, did that change your perspective on how you think about time? Because, you know, whether you've been diagnosed with cancer or not, your life is also finite, right? Like you also are on this sort of one-way ticket, not to get completely morbid, but truthfully, how has that changed how you think about it?
It's changed how I think about it a lot, actually. Like even going back to what I was talking about previously with my businesses and following my heart and my gut, like, you know, post-cancer, I'm like, I'm done with this business. I'm ready to pass it on to somebody else and go all in on what I'm passionate about. I keep a list, which I did before my mom had cancer, but I keep a list of all the places that I want to go in the world, which I've done for a long time. And I keep a list of things that I want to do, things I want to try. I kind of look at it every year. I see what I've done. I see how it's changed. So in my mind, post her cancer, I'm trying to do the things that I want to do, not just say, oh, when I'm retired, I'm going to do this, or when my kids are in college, or I'm trying to do it now.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I'm very focused on living and not waiting.
Yeah. That sense of urgency is something I totally relate to, because I mean, you start to realize that there's no benefit in waiting. You're just actually putting yourself in a lot of risk by waiting.
Yep.
Something that I've told people too is that every single one of us is one phone call away from a doctor telling us that our life is different today than it was yesterday.
Yep.
And you just don't know. And so I love that you said, you know, I'm just doing those things now, because why wait? Like, what's the point in waiting?
Yep.
I also love that I'm curious for you to talk a little bit more about the positive spin you're putting on this. Because, like, people hear cancer and they're like, okay, that's some baloney because that's some negative stuff. So, like, deal with it. That's just negative stuff. But you have a different vision for the book and making it, I mean, it helps that it's a gift book, right? It's something that somebody would give to somebody who has cancer or might be going through treatment for cancer. But what does that look like to you in terms of putting a positive spin on things?
I want someone to pick up this book and be like, I can get through this. Look at all these amazing women that have gone through what I'm going through, have gone through maybe more than I'm going through or less than I'm going through. And they have come out of it on the other side. They're thriving. They're doing great. So examples of that, examples of things that inspired them, examples of things that worked for them. That's kind of how I'm taking it. I'm trying to keep the negativity out of it.
Yeah.
And maybe there'll be some adversity in the book, but then it'll show how they overcame that and how it ended up being okay and what positives they got out of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's a different thing. Adversity and negativity are not the same thing.
Right.
Like, adverse events are not the same as something that's negative.
Right.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I want to go back just a couple of minutes to something that you were talking about. You know, after your mom got sick, you started to look at your first business and, you know, reevaluate it. Again, people sometimes, well, frequently, they feel like once a decision has been made, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to do this business, your first business, I'm going to do this. They have a hard time, again, deviating away from that, because it's almost like we view it as an admission that, oh, I was wrong somehow, and that's not the path that I was supposed to be on, or somehow I made a mistake. And I don't get that at all from you. It was just like, nope, this isn't the right thing, and I'm going to go in this new direction this year. Did you ever feel like, I don't know, did you ever feel like hesitation around making a shift for any of those reasons?
Yes, I would say I did. I actually have felt some guilt.
Oh, wow.
Because I built this business. I'm proud of the business, and I don't want to just shut it down. The new business, this health and wellness business is fairly new. And so it needs to be grown and developed and whatever. And so to shut down something that's already kind of grown and running to start something new, I feel some guilt around that.
Yeah.
But I have kind of decided that I want to find a young woman, preferably, to purchase the business. And I would like to train the person and have her take the business over and grow it and run it. And hopefully it'll be someone that's passionate about that business. So knowing that when I find that right person who's going to then continue that on, that'll feel really good to me.
Yeah.
That feels like the right solution to me.
Yeah.
Because I am attached to it just because it was kind of like a baby.
Well, you made it.
Right. So I wouldn't say it was an easy decision, but I know in my heart that it's the right decision.
Got it. Yeah. So hey, if there's any women listening who are looking to purchase a business, we've got your person. Yeah. We've got your person. So I kind of want to go back to your health coaching a little bit. If people are interested in learning more about that, how do you work with people? Where can they find you? That type of thing.
So people can email me, Marnie, Marnie, at Zenful Life Coaching, and that's Zenful, Zenful, Life, Life, Coaching, Coaching.com. That's also my website, www.zenfullifecoaching.com. There's a lot of information on the website. And I'm totally open to people emailing me. I am typically I work with someone for 6 months at a time, but sometimes that overwhelms people. So I'm open to working with someone for 3 months. I would like to offer all the listeners a 30-minute free health consult to kind of...
Oh, cool.
To see what your own personal goals are and see if we're a good fit for each other.
I love that. That's awesome. And you mentioned, you've got one-on-one coaching and you've got group coaching as well?
Yes. So in the fall, I'm going to be running a group coaching session with another health coach at Out of Modern Well. We don't have the date set yet, but that will be starting up probably in September. And groups are just formed at various times and people sign up. And the way that works is it's very similar to the one-on-one, but some people prefer to work in a group coaching environment where they're hearing other people's stories and feeling like they're maybe not alone in what they're working towards or having some accountability to a group. So,
yeah. And if you pop over to our website too, there's a lot of resources on there. There's information about how, you guys can work together, but then also, recipes and a blog and, some information of things like some selections of things that are on Amazon that are, great for health related stuff, how to restore your gut. Really good resources that are available as well. So if you're interested at all in kind of kickstarting your own health journey, there's a lot that is on Marnie's website. So before I let you go today, I have to ask you the last question that I ask every single person who is on the podcast. We are putting together a Spotify Power playlist, which is a playlist of motivational songs to keep people pumped up during the week. So I have to ask you for your favorite motivational song.
So I really like the song Sunday Candy by Chance the Rapper. And my kids actually introduced me to the song. Chance the Rapper is very popular with teenagers. But there's something about this song that I just love. I love singing it in my car. Yeah, I've listened to it a gazillion times and I'm still not sick of it. So.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Marnie, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your businesses and your journey with us, but also opening up and sharing your experience with your mom and letting us get a sneak peek into this, new project of yours before it's all wrapped up. That can be incredibly anxiety provoking to start to talk about something before it's out there and is actually a physical thing in the world. So I appreciate you being willing to come on and share your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. And hopefully I can come on again when the book is published and talk about it again.
Heck yeah, that would be great. I really hope you guys enjoyed meeting Marnie and getting to know her amazing story. I bet you can guess what 2 themes I'm going to hit on in this outro. I was so impressed with how Marnie took such a critical look at her own life after her mom's cancer diagnosis. You know, I mentioned the analogy in her episode, and I've mentioned it in previous podcast episodes, where when you've gone through an adverse event, whether it's you or someone who's really close to you who's gone through something like that, you see the matrix. You see life for what it is, this finite gift. And once you see that, and once you allow it to change you, you can't ever go back. You don't ever see it in the same way as you did before. And what I want to encourage you all to do is something that Marnie did, and it is not easy. I want you to trust yourself, and I want you to have the courage to ask yourself the hard questions and answer them honestly. So Marnie asked herself the hard question, is this business, Chili Bean Promotions, is this business really what I want to be doing? And as difficult as it is for her to answer that question with a no, she did it anyway. It can be so hard for us to make changes like she is making right now, but ultimately, you are going to be so much better off if you at least tell yourself the truth. You don't have to tell me the truth. You don't have to tell anybody else those really deep-seated truths of yours, but at least don't lie to yourself. Be honest with yourself about what your true passion is, because it is such a game changer when you open up and tell yourself the truth. The second thing that I want to highlight is a conversation that we had around, what happened to a lot of the women, or some of the themes that she heard after speaking with these women who had cancer. They all said, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't waste your time on toxic people. Heck, don't waste your time at all. The clip that I showed of Marnie's in the beginning, basically it highlighted the sense of urgency that she is living with now, so that she can go and do the things that she wants to do, those things that are on her list. I want to encourage you all to live with that same sense of urgency. And the last thing that I want to highlight this week from Marnie's interview is, as you think back through Marnie's journey, she was in corporate America, and then she left to become an entrepreneur when her kids were born. She started Chili Bean. She, took this left turn and started her coaching business, and she's writing a book. All of these things are slight pivots. And there are 2 things that I think people get wrong when they think about the concept of life design. Number 1, I really think people look at decisions as being much more finite and as a much bigger deal than they actually need to be. So Marnie decided to create this business, this promotional goods business. That wasn't the be-all, end-all of the rest of her life. She still took the opportunity to pivot when that business didn't make sense for her anymore. And so don't look at any decision you're making as finite, like you're never going to be able to make a new choice again. That's not the case. And the second thing that I want to call out is this notion of life being really black and white. People think that either you work in corporate America or you're an entrepreneur. Either you're going to have a traditional 9-to-5 job or you're going to start your own business. And that's just not something that you need to do. I think that type of thinking keeps people from pursuing their passion and from starting on something on the side that may or may not be able to sustain them as a full-time income. It keeps them from doing that. And so, I want you to think about, how can you live in that gray area? Maybe you have a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you have a traditional corporate job, but you want to start selling your own t-shirts or selling your own anything, or coaching, or whatever it happens to be, teaching people something on the side. maybe you do that and you do it for a few hours because you're testing it out and you want to see whether this is something that's viable, and maybe it grows and maybe it doesn't. But live in that gray area, especially if it allows you to pursue your passion when you otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. Now, before I end my little monologue from today, I want to end by saying thank you to a woman named Brittany who reached out to me recently through my website, and she had this to say, as my daughter is like making squeaky baby sounds. She had this to say: as a woman working to continue to grow in my career in life, I wanted to let you know that I appreciate your voice and perspective, and I appreciate the opportunity to listen to women who didn't hold back. I'm working to form a women's leadership council within my company and will be directing our women leaders to your page for inspiration. My many thanks. Brittany, thank you so much for reaching out. You made my day, and I'm so glad that these interviews with these amazing women who I am finding everywhere are doing exactly what I hope they would do. I hope they are inspiring you to take bigger, bolder action in your lives, and I hope they're showing you that it is absolutely possible for you to chase your goals and your dreams. Before we close out today, I want to say thank you to my producer, Cameron Hill, and to my incredible sponsor, Modern Well. If you want to learn more about how you can reach your goals in a one-of-a-kind work-life community, visit www.modernwell.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit from this inspiring message. And if you have a moment, click the link in the episode description to leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me. Finally, I want to remind you that it is absolutely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even in spite of all of the chaos and demands we all experience. Sign up at aprilseifert.com to gain access to tools that will help you do just that. I have carefully created and curated a set of tools that combine the powerful fields of psychology and design thinking to help you intentionally create a fulfilling, happy life you love. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and until next week, stay inspired.